Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you? I hope you're well. And for all the dads out there, hope you had a fantastic Dad's Day. I don't know about you, but one of the things I really love is just knowing what my kids are into. I say kids, my children are adults now. And one of the great things for me is one of the things that I listened to on a podcast and actually thought, that's a really good idea, is actually to ask your children or adult children, wherever stage they're at in life, just to share a playlist with you from Spotify so you can find out what they're into. And I like that idea, the idea that you're kind of where they are. So you've got something new to engage and discuss with them. So that's my present from my children this week, and managed to see my lovely daughter. My son was away, unfortunately. But lovely Father's Day nonetheless. I hope you're the same, and I hope you're well. Thanks for joining us today. Now, it's tough times, isn't it? A bit scary out there. Recession is looming like a dark cloud on the horizon, like hay fever. Well, nightmare that's been over the last few weeks, I have to say. According to Rightmove, the house price growth is set to halve. They're saying that figures from the property website show that the average national asking price rose by 9.7% last month, and that's a slowdown from 10.2% in April. However, borrowing costs and choice in properties on the market forecast by Rightmove to cause that rate to slow by 5% to the end of the year. Demand per property also dropped by 8% in May. Well, just to lend some perspective to that, as long as you've got more than one person chasing a property, then you've got too much demand for supply. And the problem with the UK market is and always has been a lack of supply. And when confidence is low, that supply comes down even further. And as the confidence comes down even further, so the sellers are out in fewer numbers, especially where, and this is the critical thing, they have equity in the property that they live in. Let's say, for instance, if you look back in time to the late 80s, where people's houses were actually worth, believe it or not, less than they paid. Can you imagine? So substantially so that the debt that they owed on their mortgage was often much, much higher than the value of the property they lived in. Now, that was an awful situation, led to many people actually giving the keys back. I don't think that'll ever happen again. We're in a kind of unique situation with the exchange rate mechanism, interest rates even going as high as 15% with some lenders. And then you look at the 2007, 2009 recession, and you find the same thing, that actually it was all about debt and people borrowing too much and ending up in a situation where they had little equity in the property that they owned. Well, since then, lenders have tightened up considerably on the percentage loan to values, and they're much tighter on the lending criterion generally. And what this means is there are less people likely to fall in serious debt. I'm not saying it's not an awful thing, and there are people there that will, definitely. But by the same token, they are few in number. So few, in fact, that if repossessions doubled, that still wouldn't have a serious impact on the UK housing market. So then what's likely to happen second half of this year? We're already seeing a slowdown and a lack of supply, but we're also seeing a slowdown and a lack of volume of viewers. One of the problems, I think, is that many agents are still going in, looking at the current values and then adding on 10%. This is a common trick. And the idea is that the sellers are tempted by the idea that their property is worth that extra 10%, which is great in a rising market. But as the market starts to slow, you're quoting higher than the rest of the market. That tactic just doesn't work. You need to be competitive. You need to hit the sweet spot. You need to get three things right: price, promotion, and presentation. You get all those things right, you're on a roll. If you don't, then you're going to get stuck. And often what I'm finding at the moment is a lot of the properties we're dealing with are coming from the online agents, where people are not getting the support and not getting the service that they expected. And, we welcome it all, of course. But yeah, it's interesting to see. And the rate rise now makes it cheaper to rent than to buy. Well, that's interesting, but the rents are going up as well. So that's an interesting article in the Times today. And apart from that, tenants are resorting to desperate measures to secure homes. This really doesn't surprise me. As we've said for a while now, the vilification of landlords, interest rates going up, the idea that perhaps buy-to-let's not the panacea it once was, the idea that the government don't like landlords, which seems to be a very popular one, all the new legislation coming in, including the repealing of the Section 21, Section 24, and the like, has made a lot of landlords reluctant to stay in the market. And in fact, I was talking to a guy on the corporate side in banking last week, and he was saying that even the larger landlords are selling up parts of their portfolios. So this is reducing further the supply. And of course, this then presses rents. So it's becoming more and more difficult for people to find property, both on the buying side and on the rental side. It's really unusual because what we've tended to find in the past is that as the sales market drops off, so rents go up, because if people aren't buying, they're renting. But the really strange thing this time around is that both are up. We've got sales prices higher and we've got rents higher. So that's an interesting trend. And look, I don't want rents to go skyrocketing because they'll become unaffordable for many, many people, any more than I particularly want house prices to go skyrocketing. It's just nice to have stability, isn't it? And the one thing that worries everybody in the looming recession is, will we have that stability? Can we be sure of what's coming next? Well, I think we can be sure of a couple of things. Number one, higher interest rates. Number two, employment looks good. There are jobs out there at least. And number three, that house prices will hold their own regardless of the wider recession, because it's a thing about supply and demand. And what we're going to see is a retraction, people deciding not to move and to hold on, wait and see, and wait the recession out. And while they do that, there'll be a lower supply. While that supply is lower, so the available stock will be sought after by the people that are still looking. Even if they were to go down by 3/4, there would still be more buyers than sellers. And as long as that's the case, there's going to be an element of stability in the market. So I don't think there's any danger of house prices falling off a cliff anytime soon, contrary to what some might say to you. Is it cyclical? Yes. Could we have a burst bubble and a pop and then a big house price drop? I think it's unlikely, but it's possible. It's happened in the past, but it is quite rare. Some people talk about the 18-year property cycle, which is something I've heard mooted again and again. And actually, there does seem to be a correlation that every 18 years something happens. But of course, 2007 to 2009 was a recession. 2010 prices recovered. If you believe in that, then we're still some years off the next pop, if you will. But I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. What I hope will happen is that prices will just stabilize, because it's not in anyone's interest that prices continue out of line and out of kilter with wages. And that's the whole idea of interest rates rising, is to control inflation, to stop us actually getting more and more salary and then house prices going higher, and then we pay more for those houses. And it's the same with all our goods and services. As tough as it is, I do think it's a pill we've got to swallow in the short term, frustrating as it is. So that's it for today. As far as the week's concerned, lots of valuations coming in. You're very welcome. Of course, there is still some slots this week if you're thinking of selling, so do get in touch. If you're thinking of renting, or if you've just got a problem with your property you'd like to call, we're all ears. We love to hear from you. So thanks for watching. Hope you have a great week. We'll be back same time tomorrow with some more news. Until then, take care of yourselves and your family. Ciao.